All right. Hello, all you beautiful, wonderful, amazing, spectacular tea people. As you can see, I'm rocking the baldy beard, and I don't know how long this will last, but why not? Why not? I haven't shaved for a week or so I thought I'd just keep it. And what we're doing right now is we are looking at this, and I got a really great question. I got just a really, really great question. And the question is, and this is something that I'm sure most people who are not drinking tea all the time and deep into tea nerddom, or this is like your big year. So I don't know if you guys know what a big year is in the sense of birding, but big year in birding is you say, okay, say you're like, you turn 45 and you're like, I'm birding now. I'm going to be a birder. And then every single bird you get, every single bird you see, you're writing that down. And that's the big year. So that's the year you can get like 1,000 birds if you travel around the world or whatever it is, right? But for the tea world, that's like, I love tea. I'm getting into tea. And I want to know what happens. What's the difference between the seasons of the teas, right? So we're looking at High Mountain Oolong in Taiwan and tea in general. You can argue tea in general. What's the difference between the seasons? And two, what happens to the teas when those seasons change? So what do I mean by that? Right here in my hand, you can see is a little tiny bit left of the Spring Pear Mountain 2023. Now, this sold out a while ago. This year sold out way faster than I thought it would. Usually we still have a touch left, but it sold out, I think, in October, maybe September, October is when this sold out. And somebody asked a really great question because I still have some springtime teas left. All right, so I still have some springtime teas left. Now, the springtime teas that I have left are there's some Jade Mountain, there is some Phoenix Valley, there is some other. Oh, the House Roast, Alley Shans, things like that. Those are springtime teas that are still left. Now, are they still any good? Now, what I've got here is you can see I did this the wrong way. So this is not the way you are supposed to. This is not the way. Oh, unfortunately, it's doing it again. So I'm sorry if you're on Instagram and you write a message thing, then I'm gonna have to go like. So annoying. I'm trying to figure out why that happens. Anyways, whatever. This was stored the wrong way. So my guess is, I'm not going to tell you which one it is. I'm not going to use this tea. I'm not going to sell this tea, but feeling it right here, this probably looks like the fun, which means the powder at the bottom of a big tea bag. And looks like that's what I kept this aside. I found this the other day. And this is a tea that has just been sitting around since the spring. This is springtime tea that's just been sitting around since the spring. You see, I didn't do it the right way. But what we're going to do is we're going to put this one, which was vacuum kept, and for most of the summer, it was kept in the refrigerator. And then this one here, which was not kept in the refrigerator, which was just randomly placed around. And we're going to see if there's a difference between the way you store them in the sense of whether they go into the refrigerator and things like that. Now, this question is an extremely valid question, an extremely great question. And the question is, what happens to the High Mountain Oolong springtime teas? What happens to them? Because, you know, when you're looking at those teas, you want those teas like this is boiled already. You want those teas like straight up 100% fresh as fresh can be. You know, like you want to, you know, when they finish, you know, you want to get them, you want to run to the post office and send them out as fast as you possibly can to all the people waiting for them because people love those springtime teas. What happens after 10 months? No. 8 months? What happens after 8 months? What happens after 8 months? Now, when you're looking at the green teas, the greener teas, you're looking at things like that, one of the things you got to remember is the greener the tea is, so that's the less oxidization it has, not a white tea, but a green tea, the sooner you want to drink it. And that's something really, really, really strong and something you really, really, really should keep track of and do it, right? Drink it as fast as you possibly can. Now, as you move up the oxidization levels, then it doesn't matter as much how fast you drink it. If you add a roast to it, then you want to actually wait longer before you drink it, right? So if there's a roast, you want to wait longer. And so what you've got is this situation where you've got a bunch of tea that you want to drink really fast. So the green teas. So for example, I don't buy a lot of green teas. Like I don't buy a lot of green teas in general. But when I buy like Sanchat green tea, I only buy a little bit of it, right? Maybe just a little bit, like a couple kilograms or something like that, because I want to sell it out and then get their next bunch in. And that's because if you wait for 6 months, you don't really want that tea, right? So the tea that I've got right now is the sort of late October pick for Sanchat Green. I want that to be gone. I want that to be gone. Like I'll probably put a huge discount on it for the March sale, right? So the March sale, I'll put a huge discount on it. I'll just say, get out of here. You're gone. I want to get in the fresh stuff, because you can still drink it up to like 6 months. It still tastes fine. But once you get up higher, you don't want to be having that tea anymore. And when it comes to, say, for example, Japanese teas, absolutely 100%, you do not want to have year-old Japanese green teas. You don't. You don't. Now, what I got here again is I've got this is the spring tea. I'm not going to tell you what this one is, just because, well, I'm not going to use this tea, but I don't want to. It's probably not going to taste very good because it wasn't stored correctly, and so I don't want to say don't buy this tea. It's crap. It wasn't stored correctly for the past year. Now this one was, and what's going to happen to these teas? Well, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, generally speaking, when you're looking at the high mountain oolongs, they stand up pretty well. Now, aging high mountain oolongs, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. The way I do it is I try and just sort of sell it out within a year. Just completely sell it out. I want all of those teas gone. So, for example, if I have any springtime teas left for the March sale, for the big sale in March, I'll put them on like extremely cheap, right? Extremely cheap, because I just want to get them gone. Now, that's just me. I want to say, I want to get in the fresh stuff, and I'm doing the sort of the fresh cycle. Now, there's other people who will actually get a fresh tea, cut it open, stick it in clay pots, and not drink it for another 5 years. Now, there's people who do that. Now, when you do that, you're bringing in some really nice flavors. It works really well, actually. It works really quite well. But, you take the big risk there that if there's too much moisture still left in them, they go like, they go really, really sour and bad. Now, right off the bat, these two teas were stored differently. And so I stick my nose in there and I'm smelling right away, just like that, boom, I'm smelling staleness. And if you are just getting into tea, or if you have never really had sort of the really high quality fresh stuff, you probably only had stale teas. You probably don't even know what a fresh tea tastes like or smells like. So with this one, that's what's jumping out at me first. There's a bit of a staleness to it. But there's also that positive aspect. I haven't talked about the positive aspects yet, but there is that positive aspect coming out on it. There's basically just a staleness and some of the good stuff, but we'll talk about that positive aspect in a second. So let's see, how is the Pear Mountain doing? Wow, so different. So different. Isn't that fun? So I stored this the correct way. It was in the fridge all summer long. All right, so stuck it in the fridge all summer long, and I took it out. I took it out at a certain point, right? So I took it out at a certain point, but it's been in the fridge all summer long, and it came out. Now it's it's sitting right sort of beside me here, and it's lost a touch of freshness, like a touch, just like a tiny little touch of freshness, just a touch, but it has absolutely not lost its freshness in the sense of going stale, right? So you got your freshness scale, right? Like this right here is your staleness, right? So this one here is still about there, right? Whereas this one, which I stored incorrectly, is like over here, super stale. But it's gone, and then if you can imagine another one right here, it's gone down here, and it's brought in a beautiful flavor that we're going to get to right now. Now, what is the beautiful flavor that it brings in? Now, I don't know if you've had these teas or if you've done this before. If you stored a tea the wrong way, if you store a tea the wrong way, and it gets sort of stale, sort of, you can see how green this is, right? These are green leaves. But if you store the tea the wrong way, right? You store the tea the wrong way, but you let it just go. You just let it go. You just let it go. What you're going to bring into it are some sweet and beautiful fruit notes in the background that a tea like this one, which is either fresh or stored the right way, might not generate at all. Are you only covering green teas, or does this apply to white oolong, etc.? But freshness is probably most important for greens, I would imagine. So covering, explain to me what you mean by covering. So all the teas that I bring in, every single tea that I bring in is airtight and vacuum sealed. Now this one's just garbage. It's just sort of sitting here. Oftentimes, if I have a lot of tea, then I'll stick it in this, something like this. This is just a garbage one that I put here to show you. But I'll put all the teas in something like this, or I'll prepackage them in the sort of the normal stuff that I prepackage things in. And then it's out of the sunlight and stored in a constant temperature. The greener teas, I will stick in the, covering I meant is disgusting. Oh, perfect. There we go. So I will stick the teas that are greener in the summertime because it gets damn hot here. Like it gets damn hot here. So I stick them in the fridge in the summertime, but then I take them out as soon as the temperature is consistently less than 20 degrees or around 20. And then that's what I do with all the greener teas. With the darker teas, the black teas, the white teas, and the roasted teas, oftentimes they will be vacuum sealed, but oftentimes they're not. So, for example, the white teas, I never vacuum seal just because vacuum sealing the white teas oftentimes breaks them. I mean, you know, with my family, when we're going through and we're saying, okay, what are we going to do? Are those the spring 23 high mountain oolongs? Yes, yeah, that's what they are. Pear Mountain, and I'm not going to tell you what that one is because it doesn't taste all that good, but it's starting to get okay. Because, you know, in my family, it's like, you know, my family will come and help out. My boys are 9 and 11, you know, and they'll be like, can I do the oolongs? And I'm like, no, it's a white tea. Like, oh, no. Because I got to help pack the teas. White teas are such a pain. But anyways, those are not done airtight and are not vacuum sealed. And sometimes they're not 100% airtight. I'll just have them in a bag, like a big bag, and then I'll tie around the end really tightly. And there might be a little bit of air coming up and down. Some of the black teas will be that way as well. Depends on the black tea. Lower elevation black teas, you can do that. But anything green, absolutely, 100% is vacuum sealed, airtight, like vacuumed. And when it gets above 20 degrees, they're in the fridge, right? They're in the fridge. And you can stick them in the freezer or you can just stick them in the fridge, but just sort of a lower temperature. And Ms. Teapot, hello. I hope you're doing absolutely wonderfully well. Good tip about the storage thing. Okay, yes, yeah. So that's what you should do with all green teas that you have in the summertime. For us here, the fridge goes on in mid to late May, depending on the spring, and then it turns off again in October. And it's this big old like whoa. It's huge fridge. But that's the correct way to store these teas. Now, let's jump back into these teas. Again, this one was stored correctly. This one, not so much. And actually, you can see right here, they've got identical oxidizations, but you can actually see that this one is a little bit darker, the liqueur. And that's because it wasn't stored correctly. It wasn't stored correctly, right? So it wasn't stored correctly. And put my tea in the fridge. Well, the greener teas in the summertime, yeah, absolutely. But make sure they're airtight, and you can stick them in the fridge. Like if you open them up, and you've got sort of maybe just something like this on it, you can actually just put them in Tupperware, and it'll be okay. It doesn't have to be vacuum sealed, but should be in the fridge. Now, remember one time. Okay, well, one last thing about putting things in the fridge. You have to be very careful about how you store things in the fridge. I remember one time I went to it was a small tea store. And I was like, "What do you got? Give me something special." And they're like, "Okay." And they went into the room and they came out with this bag of tea that they had kept in the fridge, and, and we drank it, and it literally tasted like onions. It tasted like onions. Now, why would it taste like onions? Green onions. Well, it's because it was stored in the fridge right beside the green onions, and they thought that they had done the storage thing. They thought by the chain it was onions, and so be careful when you put it in the fridge, because tea, anything that is beside tea or close to tea, will just seep into the tea, just seep into it, and yeah. So be careful with that. Be careful with that. And so Mr. Fiery Bird there, I answered your question just before you joined in. So the wonderful question was there. Now let's look into these teas. Now this is the second steep, and don't put tea in a fridge is also storing kimchi. Yes, there you go. Kimchi is tasty but permeates everything. Exactly. And that is something that is, one last story about that. When I was first getting into tea, I would do these trips. So I guess I still am, I don't know, whatever, but a wilderness guide. And I would actually, and then I was also doing hummus and things like that. It was a strange part of time, my life. But I would prepackage the tea. So I put them in little bags and I prepackaged the tea, because then every day when I was getting the bags ready to take people out, I'd make tea for them in the mountains. And I realized one day I was out there and drinking tea, and they're like, "Oh, is this curry tea?" And I went, "Curry tea?" I drank something like, what is this? And I had stuck these bags of tea right beside all my spices for like the various spices of making various sort of Middle Eastern cuisines. And and the tea literally tasted like those spices. There was nothing else other than the spices, like extremely strong spices that would permeate, something that was going into hummus. So be careful where you put your tea. And, if you're just getting into tea, it would have happened, right? It would have happened. It would have happened before. Now, when we're looking at these two teas, now when you store the tea, okay, I'm putting a value judgment on it. I'm saying that for me, when I store a tea like this, no, that's not right. That's not the right way to store the tea. I would store the tea like this, which would be vacuum sealed. Now, that's not necessarily correct, because there are positive aspects to this liqueur, to this tea right here, that people would enjoy. There's a sweetness to it. There's a fruitness to it. Almost like a tart, wider mouthfeel. Sorry, that's going to be loud for a second. And the staleness after the first steep, let's be honest, the staleness after the first steep is dissipated a little bit. It gets dissipated a little bit. Oh, that's too much. There we go. Close enough. So the staleness after the first steep gets dissipated. It's not too bad. But the first steep, it's really dramatic. So if you have one of these teas that get stale, you can throw away the first steep, right? It's okay to throw away the first steep, especially if you are sensitive to caffeine. You throw away the first steep. I got a whole bunch of things I can't wait for arrive. 50 grams of light and medium roast. What should I be looking out, not liking for in comparison? With those two teas in particular, they're very similar teas. The light roast, house roast, I've only got a couple 100 grams of either of those left. Not very much. I should have bought more in the spring. But the medium roast got a little more caramel, a little more red fruity type stuff in the background. The light roast is softer, rounder, and more buttery. But they're both really good. So you won't have to worry about too much in there. They're relatively similar. I've done harder roasts on that in the past. They're relatively similar, but wow, the difference between these is really dramatic. Really, really dramatic. This is really close, really similar to what it was like fresh. Obviously, freshness scale is here, right? Here's the freshness scale. Here is not fresh right there. So the freshest scale, this one's still around here somewhere. It's still pretty good. Whereas this one over here is over there and also going actually underneath to like the positive aspects of some of it as well. But here's another really good thing to remember when you're looking at sort of overaged or aged badly or aged correctly, I don't know, depending on your personal tastes, high mountain oolongs. When they get stale and they get aged stale, and I'm doing this on purpose, I'm blasting these teas here. The ones on this side, the ones that are sort of aged too much, they oftentimes all taste the same. To give you an example, this right here, I was drinking this yesterday because I found this. It wasn't completely airtight, so it just got thrown in a pile, and then I had some yesterday because I wanted some tea. So this is the September mystery tea, and I assume from this year. I assume from this year. There might have been a mystery tea from last year, but I'm assuming it's from this year. And so that mystery tea from this year tastes very, very similar to this, but they are not the same. Not the same. Like that's a fall tea and from a different spot. And this is a springtime tea from obviously from a different spot. And so when they were fresh, they taste very, very different. But once you start aging them poorly or aging them correctly, again, depending on your own personal preference, they start to taste the same. They really do. That staleness turns into like a bright fruit flavor. There's a darkness to the liqueur and all of that. Hey, man, how's it going? I think I looked at my feed and I think you're here on the beautiful Isle. So I hope your trip is going well. I hope it's going well. So hopefully that answers the question. So what are we doing? We've been about 20 minutes about answering that question. Anybody have any questions about anything else? So any questions about anything else or anything else that's coming up? I still haven't gotten to doing the things that I have to do. I still haven't gone to see Mr. Chen, and I still haven't gone to Alishan. Right now, my wife won't let me go, which is, I'm not really complaining, but I'll have more time in the springtime. But I got to go do those things. Oh, wow, so different. Wow. There is such a difference between these teas, like freshness-wise. You can tell this is stale. You just tell. Isn't that? It's fascinating. Let's see. Living here now. Oh, well, yeah, when you get to the East Coast, come visit for sure. The Blue Lotus section I purchased. Any tips on brewing? Yes. Okay, so that's a good question. Blue Lotus is absolutely a wonderful thing. We got another question coming in from YouTube. But the first steep can be pretty bitter. And so the first steep, if you want to, you can throw that away. Now, it's your own personal preference. The first steep also has the most sort of like getting high stuff, right? So Blue Lotus will get you high. And so not really high, like not drunk, but there's a feeling to it, right? Blue Lotus is great. It's fun. And so what you're looking at when you're doing the Blue Lotus stuff is if the first steep is too bitter, you can throw that away. Now, one thing, a really good tip, Mr. Fiery Bird, if you are giving it to other people, what you can do is the first steep, you can drink it all yourself. Right? So you can drink it all yourself and then go with the further steeps and give them to the other people. So that's something that I've done in the past. But yeah, it's just something to think about. right? So that first steep is going to be a little bit bitter, but the further steeps are wonderful, like lotus. So literally lotus, right? There's a reason that Lotus Eaters is one of those things that um, it's a heart opener, right? So the context of the Lotus Eaters were they were the guys on the voyage, and then they wound up someplace and they started eating lotuses, and they're like, I'm never fighting again. There's something to it. There's something to those blue lotus flowers. There is something to it. Anyways, it's an interesting one. Can you summarize the ideal storage conditions? Again, vacuum sealed, airtight in a fridge or a cool, dark place if it's cold enough. I've heard that humidity in the fridge can also be a problem. So the key to putting the teas in the fridge, two things. One, it has to be absolutely airtight, 100% airtight. Now, what that means is if you put this in the fridge, that won't work at all. It'll be terrible. It'll just be awful. So it has to be airtight. So say, for example, you don't have a vacuum machine in your house. You put this in a Tupperware container, and that would be okay. The second thing is with the humidity. When you're taking it in and out of the fridge, there is the danger that the changes in temperatures will add humidity to the tea leaves, which means you have to, when you take it out, let it get to room temperature before you open everything up. Right? Let it get to room temperature before you open everything up. Because if you open it up, put it back and forth, you will get a lot of humidity in there. The third thing is, I'm only talking about high mountain oolongs. That's the only thing I'm talking about. Right? The only thing. If you're talking about like a black tea, it's not going to work. If you're talking about like a tea cake, no, don't ever do it. Tea cakes should never go in there. A white tea, no, I don't even think so. Remember, there is a little bit of moisture in the high mountain oolongs. So if the moisture comes out and gets back in again, comes out and gets back in a little bit, it's going to be okay, right? It's going to be okay if you're drinking it fresh, right? But this is also like, say for example, you don't want to be taking it in and out and in and out and in and out every day. You're going to be wanting to say you have in the springtime. Okay, here we go. Perfect. In the springtime, you got the vacuum sealed bags and you buy 500 grams. Well, say you drink 100 grams a month of the tea, stick it in the fridge, take out one, drink it when it's finished, take out another one, drink it when it's finished, take out the other one. And so during that month-long time, the tea will be fine. The tea will be fine. 100% it'll be fine. What you're looking at is prolonged, higher average temperatures sort of sitting somewhere is not going to work. The perfect temperature, again, my rule of thumb, there's no absolute rules on this. My rule of thumb is about 20 degrees. So when the 20 degrees goes up, right? But as soon as you open one of those bags, the time is ticking, right? As soon as you open it up, the time is ticking. So hopefully that helps. It's a great question. But hopefully that helps, right? The only thing I'm talking about, I don't know too much about, say, in general, super green teas. Like green teas, if you buy it, you should drink it fast. Like don't put it in the fridge. Just open it up and drink it until it's gone. Especially Taiwanese greens, any of the greens that I sell. And when it comes to, for the high mountain oolongs, it works well. It works really, 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 really well. Okay, there we go. Any other question about that, then let me know. It's the alkaloids. I'm excited to smell it, whatever it is. Yes. Curious what your favorite cold brew tea was from 2023, if you happen to have one in mind. That's a good question. Probably my favorite cold brew was the Nanhu Mountain, but it's not as fresh as it is right now, so it probably isn't going to be the best cold brew. Right now, of the teas that I have on the site, the thing that probably would be obviously it's the wintertime, I haven't tried it, but probably the best cold brew would be my favorite Teafluencer at the moment. who absolutely loves is probably the Chilai Black. Like if you put Chilai Black in a cold brew, it's going to blow your mind. Blow your mind into little tiny pieces. It's just going to be so good. So good. Like just, you know, the Lishan Winter, yeah, for sure. You know, the Pear Mountain Winter would probably be good. Any of the fresher High Mountain oolongs work really, 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 really well. But if you put that Chilai High Mountain Black as a cold brew and just like stuck some in a bottle, put it in overnight, you'd just be like probably in heaven. Any of the floral teas, I bet you the rose, the rose or the orchid magnolia, the magnolia orchid one, either of those would be really good for a cold brew. But yeah, so that's what I'd say for cold brew right now. Now I haven't done it for a while, so I don't know, but that's what I would say. That's what I would say for sure would be the best. And now I got to get the Chilai Black. Well, the Chilai Black, yeah, is the, and I just bought basically all they had left, so it'll last until probably June. It'll probably last till June. Now that's interesting. So on the third steep of this, pretty good. Sort of the springtime flavors are starting to come back. The first steep was pretty stale. The second steep was the good parts of the staleness, and then the third steep, you're getting really like into the springtime stuff. Much more recognizably springtime. That's interesting. Makes sense. And this one, sorry, down the wrong pipe there. This one, Pear Mountain Spring, I'm really happily surprised how well it means that sticking it in the fridge for the summertime works. It works. And yeah, that's really nice. That's really nice. Okay. The Chilai Black is insane. Yes, it is. Yeah. All right. Hey, man, how's it going? Can I join the video? I'm just actually about to jump off. We're just about done. But yeah, any other final questions? I gotta go. I was packing tea all morning, so I got to pack up the last little thing. So anybody who ordered, even if you ordered like in the past couple hours, all your teas are going to be set up and be sent out in the next hour or two. I was thinking about it. It's actually pretty funny because oftentimes, like say if you are in the West and you order at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I'm in like full packing mode. And so oftentimes it'll be somebody who orders late at night wherever they are, and they'll be like, oh, that's an easy order. And I'll put it together and I'll ship it out within sometimes within 30 minutes to an hour. And, and I'll scan it into the thing and they'll get sent the email. And I oftentimes get these angry emails like 2 weeks later or a week later, usually not 2 weeks, but about a week later. Are you going to send out my tea? And I'm like, send out your tea? And I'm like, dude, I sent out your tea like 30 minutes after you sent me the thing. 30 minutes after your purchase. So I've got to be careful. There's some people who ordered in the morning. And so I'll probably scan them in maybe later on or maybe tomorrow. I'll send out the tea first, but I'll put them into the system like a little bit later because it's happened so consistently. It's kind of makes me sad. Because they should be like, wow, you send it out so fast, but instead they get like a week of, oh my God, why isn't that? Oh my God, these guys, oh, these are awful people, you know. And so I'll probably scan them in later. But anybody who's ordered so far, your teas are going to be sent out today, which will be nice. The container is a cylinder stainless steel with tight-fitting cap and has a plastic inner cap. Those are fine. Those are great, right? Those are great. So what I would suggest for those types of teas with the metal ones with the plastic ring on the inside would be, put your tea sort of like this, and then stick it in that, and then that works out really well. That works out really well. But I would say this, having the tea touching those is not the best idea. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if it's like a show pour or one of those types of pours, it doesn't matter too much. But if you're looking at one of the more delicate Taiwanese teas, oftentimes, depending on what's inside the cylinder, the steel cylinder, the teas will actually, suck up that flavor, and you'll actually get like a metallic taste that will come out in the tea. So be careful about that. All right, so be careful. Just be careful about that. But if you have it in another bag or something like that, then it works really well. For putting in the fridge, those work really well. They're just same as Tupperware, right? They're the same as Tupperware. But if you're looking at one of the, like I said, one of the more delicate teas, then probably not. That's not something that you would want to. Probably not something that you would want to deal with. But good question. Okay, I think that's about it. Take a last shot here. The flavor of my Oolong changed, yeah, and the metal will, depending on the quality of the metal and all of that, it'll impact it. And thankfully, the reason I use this stuff is because it's pretty flavor neutral, right? Like you can keep them in here for a year or two, and it's pretty flavor neutral. I've tested it out, obviously, and so it doesn't bring in nasty smells. But oftentimes the metal canisters do. And so you have to be on guard and careful with that type of stuff. But anyways, that's it for now. Thank you everybody for joining in. If you have any questions about this stuff or anything else, then let me know. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, wherever you are, I hope you have an absolutely amazing morning, night, evening, weekend, all of that type of stuff. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next live stream.